We're ready. All right, now it's 7:02. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to tonight's meeting of the Oakland Mills Community Association Village Board. I can't talk tonight. First up, as always, is approval of the minutes from the February 27th board meeting, because our last board meeting was a community meeting, so there are no minutes. So is there a motion to approve the minutes from the 27th of February? Motion from Bill, second from Warren. Any discussion on those minutes? All in favor of approving? 1, 2, 3, 4, 0, 0. Okay, and then tonight, is there a motion to approve tonight's agenda? Sure. Motion from Warren, second from Bill. Any discussion? Okay, I have an item. I would like to propose that we add a 5-minute new business item after the update from CA and the draft budget discussion to discuss potentially appointing the 2 incoming elected board members to the current board to fill the 2 vacancies. We are authorized for up to 7 people filling seats on the board. We currently have 5. So we could potentially let them start early. They're both receptive to this, and it could potentially help us with some of our quorum issues we face.
Is that a motion?
It's a proposed amendment.
We do. Second.
So is there a motion? Yeah, is there a second to my amendment? All right. Any further discussion? Okay, all in favor of the was it, do we do a vote on the amendment?
The amended agenda.
Okay, all in favor of the amended agenda? 1, 2, 3, 4, 0, 0. Okay, very good. Just make a note here so I don't forget that. All right, we are underway. First up, as always, we have resident remarks. If there's anyone interested in making remarks, please, well, you would be online raising your hand because the only person in the audience is on our agenda. Paul, go ahead.
I'm gonna unmute myself. Can you hear me?
We do.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to bring up the issue of commercial vehicles parking on residential streets. I appreciate you following up on this, John. However, we still have the problem. I've not put in a complaint to the police because of the follow-up that Ashley was doing. So I didn't want to interfere with whatever she had going. So that's kind of where I'm at. I don't know whether I should put in actually a complaint or not. And I see Ashley is on the call, so maybe she can answer that particular question. But I appreciate your following up, John.
Thanks, Paul. And yeah, Ashley, first, thanks for replying with the email. I think that was yesterday that you replied. And the reason I've primarily been communicating it is we have them in several different places now. So I figured, well, if each individual is calling the police, they'll be, running all over, seeing some, not seeing others. If I sort of just collect the ones that we're hearing about and send them all in, I'm hoping they can be dealt with more comprehensively. But Ashley, did you get any updates from traffic on any efforts to continue enforcement? Because we have one new one. That's the one on 40 Winks I made you aware of, but then we have those, I guess, repeat offenders who didn't seem deterred by the first citations they received, I guess.
Hey, Jonathan, thanks, Paul. So no, I don't have an update. I don't see Adrian on, but Adrian serves as the point of contact for us for HCPD. I do know that they were going to be increasing their traffic enforcement, but I can follow up with the sergeant that gave us that update and just find out specifically, if we can, how often during each shift they're doing it, since you all are seeing that increase as you reported.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. And it'll either be myself or Adrian that'll touch base with you.
Okay, I have one other follow-up question, because I'm not sure whether this really falls under the police or, another department, but I don't think the vehicles up by Paul are really causing any damage to county property, but some of the other ones are. Because they don't even fit on the shoulders, so they're pulling up on the grass and they're creating those muddy ruts in the the patch of county land between the sidewalk and the road. Um, is that? I guess it's a two-part question. Are the people with the vehicles ultimately responsible for that? Like, is that part of what they'll be fined for, or does the county otherwise fix that once the vehicles have been moved? Because they're, like I said, along Kilimanjaro, it's really making a mess.
So yes, I know that we had that issue before when one of the trucks kind of made that indentation in county property, and we did report it. We are still reporting it. The main thing will be trying to get that area cleaned up first. So that way, when the county does need to go back in and do any work, hopefully that will deter any of those cars that are kind of parking and they're making that indentation that will deter them if possible. But I'll follow back up with Adrian on that as well.
Okay, thank you. All right, Paul, was there anything else?
No, that's it. Again, my thanks for follow-up.
Oh, sure, my pleasure. I kind of do my weekly rounds now at the end of the week because that's usually when they reappear. All right, anyone else for remarks? Okay, moving on to new business. First, we have our monthly or sometimes semi-monthly update from Marty Altmans from CA. So welcome, Marty. Hope you're getting more sleep as baby gets a little older.
Yes,
Okay,
getting plenty of sleep, actually. She's a pretty solid
good.
sleeper. Which one? Okay, well, it's been a while since I saw you. I think I saw you right before Christmas last, when I went out on my paternity leave, and when I came back in February, you guys have a busy agenda, so this is the first chance you've had to have me back. So I've got a bunch of stuff to kind of go through. So we've had some big program highlights this past month in February. So CA partnered with the Columbia Festival of the Arts, Luminous, and the Community Foundation of Howard County to support the community event highlighting a Howard County Public School residency by Los Cafeteras. I'm hoping I'm saying that right. Our collaboration culminated in a free show at Oakland Mills High School to promote engagement within the community. Our purchasing team represented CA at Howard County's Ready, Set, Grow Procurement Connections Workshop on March 20th as an exhibitor. The event focused on providing opportunities for all the small MBE, WBE, DBE, and veteran-owned businesses in the area with Pat O'Malley and his team. For Black History Month, we had Athleah Beck, owner of Athleah's Almost Famous food truck, come out next door to the teen center here as a guest for the cooking club at the Yukon Teen Center, and talk to the participants about how she turned her passion to cook into a career as a chef, taking them through meal preparation from cooking etiquette to presentation. They ended with a meal of curry chicken, cabbage medley, and rice. And our sports park is now opened a little bit earlier again this year, March 23rd during spring break. So that way it would be back open for spring break this week. Finance is preparing the new annual charge online payment screens, which will now reflect the owner's balance due. This is a helpful reminder if any owner has an overdue balance in addition to the current bill amount, or if their balance has possibly been reduced since the mailing of their current bill. After 25 years of exceptional service and leading our procurement and contract administration for CA, Director of Purchasing Pat O'Malley is retiring for CA this April. We're gonna miss him. He actually started about a month after I did when I was 15. So I've known Pat for a long time. Pat was hired in 1989 to set up the purchasing office for CA, drafting purchasing policies, establishing processes and procedures, and supporting CA operations. The recruitment for a new director of purchasing is currently underway.
Real quick,
Yep.
would that be after 35 years?
I was gonna say.
Yeah, I think it's 35 years.
Okay.
Yeah, I think yeah, typo in there.
Just in case you give this
Yeah.
presentation again in the future elsewhere.
Yeah. Human resources, learning, and OB&T are updating the process of updating our emergency succession plans for key positions throughout the organization. And our general counsel is actively working with our legislative liaisons to protect and promote CA's interests in the Maryland General Assembly session, which is going on right now and concludes this April. Some organizational challenges we're still having. Sustainability is experiencing continued delays to receive county permits, documents to install EV charging stations. So we have a bunch of them ready to go, but we can't put them out because we can't get the permits to get them installed as quickly as we like. And then next door at the Columbia Ice Rink here, which affects you guys, is our Zambonis are aging in need of constant repair and just in parts and lead times, but to try and get a replacement unit is almost 2 years from when you place the order to get it. So they've got, I think they've got the order in, but it will be a couple of years before it can get delivered because of the supply chain backup on that at this time. In construction news around Columbia, our capital improvements completed the play area located near Blue Sea Drive and Kings Contrivance, and I got a photo and a couple slides of it. They completed the second floor ADA restroom at the other barn, began renovations at Stonehouse, and worked with our outdoor tennis team to prepare courts for spring opening. Our spring volunteer programs have begun, and I've got a photo of this next as well, of our weed warriors, string waders are in the planning stages and getting ready for those events. Open space has continued prepping for spring. This includes mulching play areas, landscaping, maintenance, and pruning, getting ready for everybody to be outside again for the summer. And our facility service team responded quickly. We had a break probably about 3 weeks ago at the Spring Sports Club where the sprinkler went off, and they were able to get the club open in less than 24 hours after the sprinkler broke, which was pretty impressive turnaround time. Capital improvements installed suede benches by Kennedy Gardens at Lake Kimaquindi. I've got a photo of that as well. And our land administration staff is exploring the integration of the GIS capabilities with our new Microsoft 360 software we recently launched. And our stream waders training is taking place on March 26th, coming up today. What's going on? There's a couple photos of the new benches out at Kennedy Gardens, as well as the top lot that they just recently renovated. The next thing they wanted me just to remind everybody about is the village elections are getting ready to come up in the next few weeks out all around Columbia in April. So CA is promoting the village elections by promoting engagement involving in the voting process, including awareness around timelines, locations, eligibility, and more. CA's communications teams continues to stay in touch with the village managers and up to date with the latest nomination process as that information evolves, and they've got a place on the next screen I'll show you where you can go to visit on the website with up-to-date information. Once all the village candidates are announced, CA's communications team will work with our designers to update any handouts that will be made available to villages holding elections this election cycle. In early March, CA's communications team posted a photo contest that was intended to promote village awareness and village pride. We received approximately 30 entries from 8 different villages. Their team's going to work together to get this winning shots out and print out postcards for each village center. Here's the Vote Columbia votes. So if anybody's at home and they want to scan that, that'll take you to the website where you can get all the up-to-date information on what's going on with the village elections around town. And then CA Point of Pride, if you did not get a chance to go to the Inspired Columbia event at Howard Community College, it was amazing. The speaker they had out, they had over 100 people attend and filled the Howitzer Center at the community college for Andreas Gonzalez. He was excellent. I actually was able to go out to the first half of the event, and he was an amazing speaker. I'm hoping they're gonna be able to, they tried to film it, so I'm hoping at some point it will get up on some of the CATVs and stuff for people to watch. Because it was astounding what he's doing and how he's moving the message of doing community service and helping kids, and how it started with one program and then Hopkins got involved and now it's 5 programs, and then everybody he runs through his program actually ends up helping push it forward, and it keeps branching out to more and more spots in the country, and how just one ripple can make a change. So it was a pretty impressive speaker they had at the event, and Sia did a great job participating in that. They're also very pleased to announce that CA's expenditures with the minority business as a third quarter were 22% of the highest reported in CA history of 4.2 million. A pair of one-time projects totaling 746,000 were helpful in achieving these results, and while these projects will not carry over into next year, CA remains committed to investing in our local MBAs. Finance is preparing the new annual charge online payment screens, which I talked about before, which show the new owner's balance. This is a helpful reminder. Basically already hit that. CA's annual recognized employees for years of service this year. Finance and payroll teams are extremely proud to recognize Susan Krabby for 25 years of service with Columbia. And then for my update, Carrie's now a little bit over about 8 months. And she went to her first Comic-Con 2 weeks ago and got to meet all the Star Wars droids and thought it was the greatest thing ever. And it's been out enjoying all the blossoms all around town. And that's it for me. So any questions? And I got that shot at the lake.
Gorgeous photo, Marty.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well done.
It is cool.
Did you score a postcard for that?
I was gonna say.
No, that's why I put my name on. I just didn't want that one disappearing and somebody else claiming it.
Great.
That's one of my good ones.
That's gorgeous.
So what's the issue with the EV permits?
I'd have to ask Jeremy for specifics, but I know that every time they're trying to get them out and applying with the county, it's a county tie-up.
It's not the easiest county when you want to permit for something.
For any,
I know, yeah.
So yeah, I believe it's just a county delay.
And just FYI, Marty, I know you're not in charge of it. At the sports park over in Harper's Choice, for the last 3 years, the 2 slow pitch batting cages, number 9 and number 10. Number 10 hadn't worked for 3 years, okay?
Okay.
And I
So the
complained
number 2
often and
we do.
early and talked with the manager, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
I know we redid a bunch of them, but I don't know if they were going to.
I know the machines were replaced a year or so ago, but number 10 still doesn't work. And I think it's an electrical issue, but when online it's advertised as all new machines, there should be an asterisk, one doesn't work.
Which one was it again?
10,
10.
all the way over on the
Slow
right,
pitch, yeah.
slow pitch 10.
I hadn't realized, it's been, now that I think about it, every time I've been out there, it's out of order, but I never realized how long it's been like
I
that.
don't use the batting cages. I usually just use the mini golf, so I wouldn't know,
Okay.
but I will ask Dan about it tomorrow and try and get back to you guys and see if I can find out why.
Because at the end of the season last year, it was still out of order, so I'm hoping it's been fixed.
I'll ask. But I know Belinda, so between Belinda and Dan, I'll get an answer for you guys.
Good.
And see if we can find out when that's gonna happen.
Yes, 2 years is far too long.
Any other questions or anything else can answer for anybody?
Just thank you for the
Thank you for the
updates and
update.
stay in touch with what's going on in CA. Appreciate it.
You're welcome. And then, I don't know, I know I'm not back next month because you guys got election stuff, but in May, either I'll be back or somebody else will be back, because Dennis' original plan was to rotate everybody, but with new president coming on board, I don't know if they're gonna just leave us be for a couple months or they'll rotate us right away, and so. if you
So
see it,
Marty,
so,
I do
if
have
not,
another question.
Yeah.
You know how many villages are having elections?
I don't know if it's decided yet, because I think this year isn't all are up this year, because some are on a 2-year cycle, some are on 1, but it's only if
Kings
they
to
have.
Drivens isn't up, Long
Okay.
Reach isn't up. So the 3 contested elections are Wall Lake, I believe, Olin Brown and Harper's Choice. I think those were the only 3 contested elections.
Oh, that's right. For
Yeah.
CA.
And Harper's Choice is a 2-year term. Wall Lake is like us, they're a single-year term.
And Long Reach has an election every year, even if it's contested or non-contested, and I believe one other village does as well.
Yeah, 'cause that's why you have to go to the website, is each one kind of has their own
Right.
rules, so you
I
gotta
should have,
go.
I should have.
Yeah.
It's not just, yeah, I was thinking in terms of board members, some of the board members have two, I think the
Yeah.
board member, the village boards, they have 2-year term too.
Yeah, but and that's the
But they
problem.
kind of
Each one's
rotate.
different,
Some of the
so that's
villages,
why
the
you gotta
two-year
look.
term stagger, so that they're
Yeah,
not all
yeah,
getting.
Old Brown does
But
that,
but
yeah.
that's why the website's so helpful, because you can go look at your village and see which one what your village is doing for the year. Because like I said, some are 1 year, some are 2, but I think this is the one where more of them are falling. So, but it's, oh, again, certain things are only if they're contested.
Those 3 I named are all contested at the board level, seeing
Yes,
Columbia Council.
I don't think any of them have a village board contested election.
You're like, wow.
I think Wild Lake, yeah, I don't think they even got a board.
Get involved, that's all I can say.
Mhm.
Everybody's gonna get involved.
Preaching the choir here.
Yep. Well, somebody listens afterwards.
That's right.
It's encouraging to get
Was telling us move to Wild Lake.
involved.
Sounds like it.
The board. Yeah, we never had one.
Kevin and those group guys are a nice group. Have fun with them. That's all I got.
Thank you very
so
much,
Mark.
Mark.
Appreciate it, Dad. Thank you, Dad.
Thank you, Ted.
You too.
Take care.
All right, our next item of new business is budgets. I'm gonna turn that right over to Brigitte.
Yeah.
Okay, let me just, share the budget.
I'm looking at everybody in the door, and that's it.
Okay, so, this is the draft budgets, budget for FY 25. Very similar to, FY 24. I will say where you'll see a couple of adjustments are in, the lease and rental. Our rentals were down a little bit last year because of course we were closed for 4 months. So I kind of, Ashley gave me a prediction of everything that's on the books. And based on that, I used that number to predict. Our leases are pretty, standard. So they slight up amount, but that's it. The other item in expenses that you'll see, some jumps in is in staff salaries. Last year I had predicted, based on an additional staff person, which we didn't ever end up hiring, so that's where the big discrepancy is, but certainly I did put in for another weekend event staff person, in the staff salary part of the budget. Under janitorial wages, last year we had put all of the setups and breakdowns that the staff does of the chairs all in the janitorial expense category, but as we were going through working with the bookkeeper and the accountant, it was better suited to be in the janitorial wages because they are paid staff that do the setup, whereas the janitorial expenses are for the contracted janitorial staff. So that's where that big jump is. The other one that went down in expenses was our advertising amount. And as you remember, we had talked about leaving the wedding wire, which was a huge expense. And based on the other places that we promote, it's a much smaller amount of money. And then the only other one where there is a big difference, not a big difference, but a difference is under utilities with telephone. We did purchase new telephones this year, so we do have to pay 2 separate entities for our phone bill, just the way it's set up. So don't know if you have any other questions for me.
So believe it or not, even though we already went over this before the meeting, I didn't notice this the other
What's
day.
that?
So janitorial wages and setup and breakdown.
Mhm.
I get what you're saying. So that's why,
I know what you're gonna ask probably.
well, I guess I'm trying to get, so if setup and breakdown is now going toward janitorial wages.
There's two separate setups and breakdowns. There's
Okay.
setups and breakdowns that Judd does as our contracted person. He sets up all the rooms, et cetera, and he takes them all down and cleans the building. That's all a contract. The staff has, salary or
Yeah,
work through Oakland Mills, what am I trying to say, on staff.
Yeah.
They do the courtyard chairs setup and
Okay.
breakdown, so that's where the separation is.
so are we? Okay. So are we also changing some of the duties between contract and salary? Because the other thing I'm noticing is, like, we estimated 17,000 for 24. It looks like we're gonna end up a little over 10, so about a $7,000 difference. But then we're saying in 25, we'll probably go up by about 4 there. And
That,
then in the contract labor, we estimated 4, we're really coming in closer to 10.5. But then we're gonna go down to 75 and,
so I can explain that. So for the janitorial expenses, I did an estimate based on the number of weddings that we had on the books for next year. And I multiplied what Judd charges for the various setups and kind of did an average.
okay,
So we were down in setups this year because of, again, we were closed for
Closed,
4
okay.
months. The 17,000 was because I was thinking that all setups were included in
Oh,
that
okay.
category.
okay,
Yeah, so down under the other contract labor, that is just, that is our bookkeeping fees.
okay.
And so
All
we
right, so it's
added
all
some,
up in number
right,
10.
right.
Okay.
So they're different contracts. There's
Okay.
the bookkeeping contract and then there's the janitorial contract.
Okay. I was just doing too much math between 10 and 11 and thinking, well, if I had 45 and 75, now it's more than the 10.5, but it's closer to that than just 75. Okay, thank you.
And Brigida, to help on that,
Mhm.
is it a true statement that number under expenses, number 10 is paying OMCA people? Number 11 is paying our bookkeeper. And number 14 is paying Judd.
That's correct.
Bingo. Thank
Yes,
you.
that is exactly correct. And so basically with this process, we present it as a draft at this meeting. Any discussion, of course, before the next meeting, any questions that you may think of later, certainly feel free to reach out. Oh, Karen has.
Yeah, so are there any capital improvements that need to still be done? I know we did the bathroom. Are there any other capital improvements that need to be done to this building?
So what I'm waiting for is, the bathroom in the kitchen is in, when we did our facilities walkthrough with, Josh and Oscar and Phil, they all looked at that bathroom and thought that we really needed to just redo the whole thing, because I said it needed a new toilet. But they said it really, needs a complete replacement. So they put it on my list of things that Oakland Mills should pay for, and I said, well, I would really like a quote before I commit to that. So they are supposed to be, the plumbing company, that CA works with is supposed to be coming in to provide a quote. And that is where we are with that.
So is it in this budget anywhere?
It's not
We
in
don't
this,
have a capital budget.
we don't have a capital budget, and I did not, it would fall under repairs and maintenance.
Okay.
Yeah, so dependent upon, how much.
Okay.
How much that would be, and it might, who knows what will turn out.
Will the share of the annual charge, if we decide we're gonna get a new bathroom, this estimate for the annual charge, is that sufficient?
Probably not. I mean, I'd like to think that, you know, of course, a budget is always an estimate based on the previous year's expenses, and as you see, it fluctuates, but,
Right,
we were way down in repairs and maintenance this year. But in looking at past budgets, sometimes we're not, it just honestly depends, because buildings, when we have renters in them, a lot of things can happen. We've done a lot of, I remember 1 year, 2 years ago, the door upstairs kept on breaking, literally almost every event. And so situations like that, that gets costly, as you're repairing, you're repairing, you're repairing. So it's hard to judge. I don't know if perhaps I could see if I could get that quote prior to finalizing this budget, that might be a thought.
I mean, I want to say to you and Jonathan is, where, you guys tell me what you need from me. You guys, the village submits its budget directly to CA.
Right.
Right, you guys submit the wish list, all that kind of stuff, but if there's things that you need me to specifically ask for.
So what, when they did the walkthrough and you said it needs a new toilet and they said, oh, it needs a new everything, like, what do they mean? Because what I thought we were gonna say is they basically want to gut it.
And that's the impression that I
To me,
got.
would be a capital
Would
expense.
fall under
If they're
that.
saying, oh, just go out and buy a new toilet, a new sink and pay a plumber to install it, well, that probably is gonna fall under that maintenance, you know, the $1,200 maintenance threshold.
Right, so what happens when they do the facilities walkthrough is they basically, we say everything,
Mhm.
you know, big, little, and everything in between. And then they provide me a list, and basically they say what falls under what they would pay for and what would fall under Oakland Mills paying for. So, that list that I had the bathroom, it was called a renovation, falling under Oakland Mills. So and then I get to say whether or not I want it done or not, based on the amount of money that we have. And I said, well, I don't want that bathroom done until I have an idea of how much that is gonna cost. And so I saw a work order go through and I emailed and I said, why is there a work order going through? And they said, that's to get a quote. So I don't think they're certain, they just know that,
Okay,
I mean, I don't know if that bathroom is ever gonna be replaced.
it
To
doesn't.
be honest, it certainly doesn't look like.
Yeah.
I've
it.
never used it, I'm gonna take your word for it.
Yeah, I mean, so I think it would be, I think I'll do that and I'll follow up with, Josh and see if we can get that quote prior to, and what. Because it would make a difference, obviously, depending on the price of and what they exactly looking to do.
Hey, Brigitte, can you just remind me, I know that there was discussion that they wanted the management contract to be extended again for another year? Did we agree to that already?
We did.
Okay.
Yes. Yes. Okay.
Yeah, I'm just not thinking of, like, the way they said, I'm just not thinking of that as like an operations budget repair and maintenance type thing, you know, if the toilet broke and we just need a new toilet, yeah, that's a repair, but if they're saying renovate, to me, that
It's an improvement.
sounds
to
like
the
capital, that's a
building.
building improvement, yeah.
Okay, yeah, I will
Okay.
follow up and work out the specifics of that.
Oh, how much money did we end up giving back?
Well, we won't know, but the hope is none.
Honesty is the best policy.
Mhm.
Sometimes it gets me in trouble, but, yeah.
Yeah, that was here somewhere, the forecast, I saw the zero. Oh, there.
Where is it?
That is an estimate based on our
Oh, okay.
accountant's
Payment
third
to
quarter.
for excess cash reserves. yeah.
Okay, it's on the front page. Gotcha.
Yeah.
I like it.
It's odd that we classify that as a revenue instead of an expense, because that's a debit to us. and a
Yeah,
credit to
It
CA.
is interesting.
Yeah, okay. All right, any other questions for Brigitte?
Thank you.
All right, so this comes back, you know, as old business at the next meeting for a vote, and the main thing we have to make sure we do is vote a budget in before this board expires at the end of April, so that the next iteration of OMCA beginning May 1st has a starting budget. So if you think of any questions between now and the next meeting, you know, don't hold on to them, especially if you think they're deal breakers. Send them to Brigida so we can get everything, resolved and voting a budget at the next meeting. Or in the worst case, the meeting after that, but I don't know, I hate waiting till the last minute. Okay, so the next item we had was the possibility of appointing our members-elect, Paulette and Andrew, to the current board to fill the two vacant seats. So as I mentioned in the email to everyone, this kind of came about before the last meeting when we were kind of scrambling and making phone calls and figuring out whether we would have a quorum or have a community meeting. And, you know, in talking to Bill and talking to Warren, and then we all chatted back here with Karen before it started, I kind of said, you know, we have two vacant seats. We have a non-contested election. We have two people who are effectively elected, just pending, you know, our quick certification at the first meeting in May. We could appoint them if they want to be appointed. What do you think? And the response was, yeah. So I reached out to both Paulette and Andrew to see if they would be interested, and they both replied affirmatively. In case we wanted to say hello or ask them any questions, I asked if both could be at tonight's meeting. Unfortunately didn't get a response from Andrew, because by the time I heard back from everyone, it was a little late when I sent it during the weekend. But Paulette did respond, and there she is in the bottom right corner of our view, at least on the big screen. And, you know, I kind of said, it's not that you have to be here, but, you know, I feel kind of strange talking about you without you here if you want to be here. So, you know, thank you, Paulette, for coming and joining us. So that's the idea. And, you know, under our board standard where we, you know, introduce new business before we vote on anything in old business, I wanted to put it on the agenda, not tonight for any discussion, so that we can decide whether this is something we do want to schedule as old business at the next meeting. Because if we schedule it as old business at the next meeting and the vote goes in the affirmative, Paulette and Andrew could just join us from that point on for the rest of that meeting, as well as the second April meeting, and get a head start on May, where they will be joining us anyway.
I think that's an excellent idea.
I agree.
I think I'm allowed to make motions. I move we do that.
Oh, we don't need to move that because we'll just bring it back as old business.
Okay.
Yeah, I just wanted to get the feedback as new business so we know whether to put it on the agenda as old business at the next meeting. So
It
any
looks like
other?
Paulette had her hand up. Maybe she wants to say something. Can she be
Oh, I'm
unmuted?
sorry, I can't see it from here. Paulette, were you trying to speak? Brigida, is Paulette trying to speak?
Oh, she left. Oh, no, I think she is. Oh,
There
there
she is.
Moving.
Hi, no, I wasn't trying
Hi.
to speak.
Okay. Well, hello.
Hello, how are you?
Hi,
Good,
Paula.
how are you?
I'm doing good. Just
Thank you for
listening.
stepping up. Can you tell we have fun here?
Yes,
All right. Are you ready?
I think so.
Okay. You'll be fine.
Are you ready to party? Are you ready to party?
Yes, I hope to be at the next one.
Yeah, I mean, you can't really see, but we have a whole bar set up back there. There's a bunch of people waiting to get in. The bouncer is checking IDs right now. It gets wild in here after about 8:30.
I know my granddaughter hangs out there. She hangs at the other
Okay,
bar.
there we go.
So.
All right, well, it's nice to meet you virtually. We look forward to meeting you in person. So it sounds like we will have this as old business at the next meeting, whose date is, I don't even know because I'm terrible at the calendar, but it's the second Tuesday in April, April 9th. There we go. So we will see you then.
Okay, thank you so much.
Well, she'll be at the candidate forum too, don't.
Well, that's right. Well, that's
Candidate
virtual
forum
too.
is
That's not in
next
person
Tuesday,
either.
Right, it's not in
That's all
person.
virtual. Yeah. Yeah, that's right. That is
I should
Tuesday.
say meet and greet. It's a meet and
I
greet.
miss doing those in person. How did that end up virtual?
Long story.
Okay. I won't ask. Well, I did ask, but I'll stop asking. All right. Well, thank you very much. Thank you, Ford. And we will bring it back as old business at the next meeting. And at this meeting, we will now move into old business, and our first item of old business is a letter to CA on the play area pilot study, a draft of which is on your table or in your board packet, or maybe even, is it coming up on the screen? I don't know. Okay,
I saw like multiple pieces. I was thinking about the cluster play area.
yeah, well, the letterhead is on our letterhead. The other stuff is stuff we've received from CA.
Oh, okay.
So I know Bill is probably the one to ask directly about this. It's not really about our letter so much as the CA's material that they're gonna present. But Bill, I know that when you and I have talked before, we talked about not just doing play structures, but doing other stuff. And the only thing I found about that in their policy was if you can't put a play structure, maybe they would put a bench there.
Yes, excuse me. I had hoped that we would do more than play areas, okay, and that possibility still exists. This resolution and approval from the CA board back February of last year covered just play areas. And it was kept at that so that in the future, so that this letter, et cetera, only covers the play areas. I talked with Jason this morning about after getting this done to then look at the next steps, step 2, step 3, to then look at all of open space to see what's possible beyond just the play areas. Now that we have a play area program guidance, which is kind of criteria and process with the policy, that we would be able to engage again with CA to look at the open space beyond the play areas with some of the similar guidance toward the rest of the open space and look at enhancements beyond just enhancing play areas. So it's on my back burner right now. As soon as we get CA to approve this guidance as or this policy as the strategic plan for play areas, then I will reapproach CA and begin talking about, okay, let's build on success. Let's look at something in open space now beyond the play areas since we've taken care of them.
But
Bill,
I
can I-
think thought.
can I-
I thought my understanding sorry, and I can't get that close to the computer, so I hope you can hear me. I thought my understanding was for the play areas, we wanted to investigate alternatives to just play area, like to play structures. I'm trying to figure out the right words or to match their words. I thought we wanted to convert some of the play areas into multi-generational play things, into things for older adults, into different stuff, but theirs is only saying they're going to replace play areas with all play structures, even though they're widening the age range for those play structures, which is fine, but they're not doing open-ended play. They're just picking different play structures that say they apply to different ages, and they're not applying to multi-generational. So it feels like they didn't really reach our goals. But I know that you and I were kind of on the same page, so I'm interested to hear your take on that.
Yes, I'm looking at the language in here. That yes, it's certainly in the survey results, absolutely. And I would, since the resolution was for play areas, the old terminology tot lot, the policy is only covering that. But what I want to do is to build on this, and then as the next step, let's look at what we can do in open space to expand it to multi-generational, et cetera, and because that's what the residents are saying they want via the survey. So I'm with you on that, absolutely.
But it's not supposed to
Go
in
ahead, go
different
ahead.
spots of open space. It's supposed to be instead of the tot lots in some places, right?
I wouldn't say maybe instead of, but along with. That the play areas could be expanded to include more things for multi-generational use. And some of that
Sure.
might spill out beyond the exact play area because something maybe like bocce ball would take up more area than just the area of the play equipment. So it might be
Sure.
in conjunction with it next to it. So that they are talking about here about adding benches, which would be for more people to be able to sit while the kids play. And then my hope is that, say, the next phase would be, let's look at all of open space. Let's look at trying to answer or provide for more of the survey results in terms of amenities for older people, multi-generational bocce ball courts, that kind of thing, absolutely.
Bill, can I?
Sure, go ahead, Karen.
So, I think, so Rebecca, I'm in agreement with you and Bill, because I don't think this, like, I think when we were in the meetings, it was kind of clear that they weren't looking to be that broad with what we were thinking about. However, we did push for a lot of that stuff, and I do think that if you look at the guidance, if you look at the larger page, if you look at number 3, explore opportunities to incorporate uniqueness into the play area within the context of a cluster. I think this is the kind of stuff where when that's happening, when they're bringing their presentations to us. So number 3 on that page, number 10 and number 11, where they're involving the community, those are things that were really critical to us. That's where what Bill's saying, I think, comes into play, is when it comes to the village, before they've even broken ground on anything, that's when we start saying, is it multi-generational? Does it incorporate open play? I don't know, Bill, that's kind of how I'm reading that, is those are the opportunities there to kind of expand on that. Now, looking at open space as a whole, no, it's looking at just playing. So,
This,
yeah.
yes, this resolution from the
Mhm.
board, yes. And I personally tried to stretch it as much as I could.
Right,
Okay, and there was a private meeting, Carol, no, yeah, I pushed hard. And
good.
we had to stay within the resolution, but under the guidance here, number 3, number 10, number 11 are areas where we can push, and then under the policy page, where it's just 1, 2, and 3,
Number 2.
under 2, develop complementary concept plans for the entire cluster, prioritizing design features which include equipment for a broader audience, climbing structures, and expanded seating areas. Okay, broader audience, we can push that to multi-generation. Expanded seating areas certainly begins to get into some of the survey results where people were asking, hey, can we have places to sit down, tables where we put down our laptops so we can do work while we're watching our kid play. And then with that too, we could ask for, okay, how about in this area with this play equipment that's there now, can we look at a bocce ball court area or bocce ball field for play there? And that's something we could bring up under the policy and then also under the guidance.
Rebecca, Bill and Jason are gonna be presenting this at the CA board meeting on Thursday.
Oh.
And so I don't know, Bill, if we'll vote on the policy that night, but we could add amendments to this policy if you guys would like to talk about open play, things like that, if you wanted to.
Well, I won't be presenting, okay, that's been a recent change. I won't be part of the presentation.
Okay,
Okay, then Jason will be doing the majority of the presentation. I will, and doing resident speak out, if we approve it tonight, I would simply read the letter that we have here in resident speak out in support of it. And then that could be something that the board, the CA board, could bring up in the discussion of this, because this would be presented to the CA board Thursday.
Yep.
And then I think it's talked about again in the next CA meeting, and then the third CA meeting on this board would be able to vote to approve this, as I talked with Jason this morning.
Yeah.
So in the discussion, you as a CA board member could then push that out.
yeah, if you guys want me to add amendments to this, if you just let me know the language and specifically what you're looking for, I can bring that up when we vote on it.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah,
So
I think Karen, you understand. I think you understand where I'm coming from and the goals I kind of thought I
Yep.
hoped for this program and how it's fallen short. Like I'm looking at the minimum requirements and repurposing guidance. And it says base case is a swing structure, play structure, and seating area. If it doesn't meet the minimum, then alternative amenities might include sustainable landscaping, seating, reforestation, turf, or other. And I suppose all the things that we're thinking about is all encompassed in that little other, but that's only if it doesn't meet the minimum safety or design requirements for a swing structure, a play structure, and a seating area.
So I had, Rebecca, I had two ideas in
Mm-hmm.
response to what you're saying, and I don't know if this is something we want to like add as a modification to the letter. So I haven't thought about exactly what the language would be, or something that you would just include, Bill, as you're speaking, or Karen, you would include. So for cluster replacement, so that, you know, the ones that exceed the minimum requirements, the policy says equipment for a broader audience. Well, a broader audience could be very liberally interpreted, except the process says equipment for 5 to 12-year-old audience, and I underlined initially to diversify the age range. So we could add something to the letter, or add something somewhere in the discussion that says that basically points out your policy says broader audience, your process says 5 to 12 initially, but we'd like you to quickly move, you know, beyond initially. Don't forget that it says initially, it doesn't say finally or only. Initially certainly, you know, indicates that there's more to come, and we encourage the more to come. I think we could just remind them of that, because that's, you know, we could use the language from their own
Right.
proposal here. And Rebecca, I hit on the same thing as you did for the replacement, you know, the other, we may have an opportunity here because we've already, I mean, we haven't voted on it yet, but we kind of nodded our heads and agreed that probably there's that one tot lot at Gatsby Green that doesn't need to exist as a tot lot anymore. So we could give some encouragement toward, well, why don't you try an other there, since we're agreeing you can take that one away first? Because, you know, most villages don't raise their hand and go to CA, take one of these tot lots away. We sound like we're probably willing to do that. So since we're willing to do that, how about trying another here?
My only concern, I want to make sure that we just don't end up with a bazillion pollinator gardens. I'm a fan of pollinator gardens, but I don't want that to be every single thing, and that seemed to be what
Mhm.
they wanted to, when they,
Well, that's why I want to see,
Right.
okay, let's explore
Yeah.
other, right?
Yeah,
Because that's,
what does
listen,
other
let's
mean?
explore other, yeah.
Well, and I agree with I remember when they gave the presentation, they did say that they would bring it to us to get community input.
great,
And then even after they designed it, they would bring it back to the board. Working with the village manager to make sure that the community and the board was aware.
yes, that's under 10 and 11.
well, the community input, I mean, the survey that we asked them to do, even the survey we did on our own, those two pieces of community input were invaluable in some of the decisions in driving this mostly to what we wanted, I think.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yes,
so that community input was huge. We wanted there to be community, like one of the things we've asked for is that if you're going to replace a play area, and it doesn't say it in these guidelines, I kind of wish it did, is that they will bring you alternatives. You won't just be given one thing. You should be given 2 or 3 things to look at to kind of say, oh, I like this, or I, you know, something, you know, that the whole community can agree on, and rather than just one single solution.
so it does say under number 11 in guidance, village board and community feedback solicited on the cluster designs concepts. It's plural. So,
And then it kind of reiterates in 13.
mhm,
Because that gets even more specific down to the, you know, the play area. As they get to the play area, they're gonna come back again.
mhm.
Well, we don't want to bore, I mean, I think a lot of the replacements that they have right now are those rascals, which are not very fun, and I'm 59, and I don't think they look fun. I can imagine. 55.
Maybe we could add something to the letter that we support the pilot study results with a focus on, but also we want to emphasize, these spots that we pointed out, that community feedback needs to be had for other options beyond play structures. Something like that. Just so that the board knows how important that is to us. Jonathan's our word guy, so I'll let him see about how he could incorporate that.
I just want to
If you guys like that, obviously.
Mhm. Yeah.
Of the top lines.
Excuse me,
I want to get a picnic table at one of the top lines.
at one of the play
There's
areas.
one
Play
behind-
areas, yes.
I think, I have to look tomorrow, but for some reason I have it in my head that behind Hound Hill and Soaring Hill, that there's.
I was thinking the same thing.
There's a picnic area back.
I've sat at that, yeah, when my daughter was at violin
Behind,
lesson. I've sat there.
behind, Bob Marietta's house.
Mhm.
Oh, is there?
There's a
I
picnic
think so.
table there,
I think so.
or there was.
Down near the creek?
Yeah, there's
No.
a picnic table at the top of the hill.
Right, and there's no creek there, there's no creek there.
Oh, exactly.
Bob lives on Sleeping Dog, so, when you go down. Just go down, just go down the hill to the very, very end. And if you made a right on the end of that street, there's the play area is right
Yes.
behind it. And I think that there's a picnic bench right there.
Let's
I
do
don't-
the Google satellite view.
I think there's no picnic bench.
The biggest play area
Behind,
along Blandare.
Yeah, it's right next to Blandare. There's no picnic table, if I remember correctly, behind April Wind. There's no picnic table behind Delphinium. I don't know if there's one at the play area behind Netherstone. Rebecca, have you been play area?
Which one is
recently?
that? Tell me how to
There's
get there.
one behind Netherstone. It's kind of like where the paths meet, like Grapevine backs up to it, and all those paths kind of converge there at the end of Federal Road.
At the
Right by
end,
the, right by the kind of, I want to call it the fancier house, the Ryan house that's there where they used to have
Ryan
horses. And that.
House? Yeah, yeah, behind the cul-de-sacs off of the road that I never remember, not Lightning View, not Mellon Brook. What's the other
Yeah.
big road?
Yeah, so if you were on Log Chain and if you were crossing from the pool, you crossed Log Chain and you went like on that path, like you're heading towards.
There is not a
Ellenbrook.
picnic table at that one.
Okay,
Yeah, there's not.
they have good swings. I know they have good
Yeah,
swings
that's
there.
I call that Megan's, because that's where Megan McHenry from Yards Alive, that's her backyard.
Yeah, it's behind her. Yep.
Yeah.
It's close to her.
So unfortunately, well, not really unfortunately,
Anyway.
it's nice to have a tree canopy, but the tree canopy obstructs the satellite view
It
to
does.
confirm that there's a picnic table there, but I'm pretty sure I have sat at a picnic table there.
I think there is one there.
Yeah,
I think that's the only
there
one
is.
now.
So,
And I know for sure that there are picnic tables at the, it's not considered a tot lot, I guess, under the old terminology playground, but at the Stevens Forest.
Yeah, there is-
Playground.
there are-
there's
Yeah, yeah.
tables.
The Stevens Forest Pool and that place there are really a destination, you know?
Oh, that's another thing that made me nervous is it says at the very bottom, under budget considerations, any larger play area project must be requested by the village board and approved by the CA board. These requests would be considered as destination play areas. Destination areas include their own parking, ADA accessibility, and multi-generational features, which kind of implies that other play areas will not have multi-generational features, only the special ones.
I don't know why they can't all be ADA accessible. I mean, there's that one play area in Blandare, which is. It's got kind of the funny looking, those red swinging
Mhm.
things. It's not the big play area, but the one that's over by like the softball fields and stuff. And isn't that like a
Well,
ADA special needs type.
The,
area.
the challenge with some of them may be if you don't have nearby parking and you're relying on, you know,
Yeah, yeah,
the pads and different grades, that you may not be able to get to the
Right.
ADA accessible equipment, so why have that there
Yeah.
if you can't get to it? I think that might be the issue.
Yeah, makes sense.
We haven't even figured that out for one of the 23 pools, so I can't imagine figuring it out for a, you know, tot lot hidden in the
Very
woods.
few, I mean, I asked that question a while ago and I can't remember the answer to that, but very few of the summer pools are ADA compliant. I was actually surprised. I knew Talbot Springs wasn't, so,
Really?
yeah.
Yeah, Talent Springs, where,
Yeah, because you can't get down to the pool.
No.
It's stairs, there's no elevator.
They
I
need
mean,
to
I
figure
can
that
barely
out.
get down
Mhm.
there. My knees,
Right.
Okay, so on this, a key thing I'm picking up and I'm asking you to add, if I don't catch everything, is emphasize other options beyond play structures, for example, picnic tables where there might not be any existing, to look at a broader audience, multi-generational use of play areas, not just the destination areas, but a multi-generational focus on play areas in general. Are those a couple items that we would need to include in another sentence or two in this?
yes.
Yeah,
Yeah, that covers it.
Okay. Jonathan, do you want to take a crack at a sentence here tonight, the two of us, to add to this?
Sure.
Or do you think we get this approved with the understanding that there'll be a sentence or so to add the other stuff in? You're good at on the spot adding this stuff in
so
with a nice sentence.
I was making some notes, so what I was thinking was in that third paragraph where we say the Oakland Mills Village Board strongly supports the pilot study results. We urge the CA Board to approve the cluster play area program policy as the strategic plan for play areas. I thought we could, you know, add to that, you know, additionally, you know, we encourage, you know, emphasis on gathering community feedback beyond play structures to offer other, you know, multi-generational amenities. And I don't even know if we need to include such as, because some of the such ases are already in the process.
Mhm.
And when you do a such as, then you sort of limit things,
Mhm.
right?
Good point.
We want the feedback so that we're not stating the such as, we're getting the feedback.
So could you run that sentence again, please? Additionally, we encourage.
Someone play back the recording. I can't have a thought. No.
Well, that's what I was gonna do, is I was gonna listen to it, so I could, cause
I think I said something. Let me see if I can decipher my notes. So after we urge the board to adopt the blah 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 plan for cluster play areas, also say we also strongly encourage an emphasis on community feedback for multi-generational amenities beyond play structures. Something along those lines.
Yeah.
So additionally, we strongly encourage an emphasis on community feedback for multi-generational features beyond play structures.
Yes.
Does that sound good?
Sure.
Everybody like that as the add-on sentence to paragraph 3?
Rebecca's giving a thumbs up.
Okay, that's very good. Okay, then that's what we'll do, is add that sentence to this. And then the next question here in discussion is, are you all ready then to approve the letter and approve me presenting it in resident speak out for CA's board meeting Thursday? And so do I need a motion for that, Johnson, then?
Yeah, because we're already 10 minutes behind schedule, so I'm going to
Okay.
call the vote. Is there a motion to approve the letter as amended?
Yes.
Okay, motion from Karen, second from Warren. Any further discussion? All in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Fantastic.
0, 0.
Thank you so much, and I'll be there Thursday live to present the letter.
You'll
Read
send
the
me
letter.
the,
Bill McCormick live.
Yeah,
changes.
yeah, I will send you the changes. Let me, you have, yeah, do you have a piece of blank paper? I'll tell you what I'll do. Sure, I got it. I
You can
forgot.
write it right on the back
Got to
of
load
here.
it. Okay. very good.
That's absolutely fine.
All right, our other item of old business is architecture guidelines. We had a nice discussion about gardens at our community meeting last week.
Yep.
Among other things, we have some additional revisions. We also have our proposed fast track process to hopefully ease some of the burden on certain types of applications with the option of even expanding that as we watch other applications come in. So Brigitte, again, thank you. Thanks to the Covenant staff for taking the feedback and doing yet more revisions to the architecture guidelines. I'm personally tired of it and managed to get my car wrecked being the architecture chair last week. So I just want this done and voted on and want someone else to be the architecture chair in May. For those who don't know, I was out checking something at the Interfaith Center, passing through the Village Center parking lot, and someone backed their car into me. So
Is your car okay, or is it?
it's at the shop now. His insurance, took full responsibility. It's a fender bender, but
Was it
I'm
your
like,
special car?
yeah. So
Pretty much.
somehow someone did not see a bright yellow Mustang passing through the parking lot. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, so that was my adventure. It's just more salt in the wound of being the acting architecture chair for life, it seems, but anyway. Guidelines. Any discussion?
It's a
Bill.
Yeah, just revoke. If we, I would appreciate in the process, if we would either give a thumbs up or thumbs down to my request for consideration for dark chain link fences.
And I sent my
Anything else?
comments by email.
Didn't Rebecca send something too about like just getting rid of the gardens?
We did, and actually, we talked about some of that at the community meeting, and I think the issue of just getting rid of stuff after Karina looked at, well, first of all, to the question of, are we out of compliance with law when it comes to, burden or excessive burden? CA is going to do a legal review of everything. And I think, Brigitte, we could even like explicitly ask them some questions, right? Instead of just saying, here, review it, we could even say, hey, we've had some feedback. Could you look at this section? Could you, because none of us are lawyers, could you give us the legal opinion on whether this is, within the confines of the state law, or this would be considered some excessive burden? But in the discussion, because remember, I think you and I were talking, and like, Karen, you've had the idea of like adding some clarifying statement to the gardens, and I said, well, what if we just got rid of that,
And that's fine.
And I think when Karina looked at it and came back, she's probably right. I think the problem with the just get rid of it is if you sort of go back to the covenants and what our responsibilities are, it is still an alteration to the exterior appearance of your property. So it's almost like, well, we have to cover that somehow, right? If we don't cover it at all, then we kind of leave ourselves open, because when things happen, we have no guidelines to look at. It just, leads to complaints, and then it leads to issues of, us sort of.
An inability to enforce.
It looked like we're arbitrarily enforcing as complaints come in. Lacking any guidelines, because it is still considered an alteration to the exterior. So in many ways, like if you look at it kind of objectively, so take feelings about, the environment or what you like or what you don't like out. It's, sort of, okay, if you alter the exterior of your property by adding or removing a garden or something else, is it, different than changing the color or something, or
Right.
taking down the tree, or, putting something else in it? It's still an alteration, and the main purpose of that is really to have that alteration, reviewed, and, most of the time they are approved and then documented. so that the resident doesn't have issues later on when either the complaint comes in or it's time for that property to turn over. They go to get the letter of compliance, whoever the covenant advisor is at the time looking at the letter of compliance, looks at the property history, looks at what the property looks like now and goes, well, that's different, and I can't find that you had an approval to alter the exterior of your property. So a lot of it is for protection.
But that's circular reasoning. If there's nothing in the guidelines saying you have to have a certain plant in your yard, then there can't be a complaint that you have a certain plant in your yard. So we don't care what's in the yard, because then there's
Not only,
It's an alteration to the exterior of property. So if the covenants say that, you basically need approval to alter the exterior appearance of your property, and we don't have a guideline that says how, and people just do it, well, then when someone comes in and complains and takes it back to the covenants, we're in a position where we say, well, that's true. They did alter their property. It wasn't approved. Now we have to decide after the fact, are we going to approve it minus any guidelines around what we would normally approve?
But our properties are getting altered every day by plants growing bigger, or by squirrels planting things, or by my neighbor's yard plants climbing into my yard. And I'm not doing that on purpose, and I'm certainly not applying to have that done. So if you look at my yard in 15 years, it's going to be totally different than it is now, regardless of any action on my part. So having, saying that if there's a complaint in the future, we're going to look back and say, oh, they applied for a garden in this spot, I guess it's okay. I mean, that doesn't make any sense to me.
Well, I mean, I think we have to distinguish between human intervention to change the property and nature taking its course. And even when nature takes its course, I mean, that can be a complaint too, right? As nature ages the property, if the resident doesn't maintain it, we have that all the time, right? We have complaints and residents get letters because, wood is rotting, or, the roof is getting stained, or there's, mildew growing on the siding,
And we have the maintenance guideline for that.
but
For
I
sure.
think in this particular case though, with the gardens, with everything that we know about sustainability and stuff like that, I think a lot of the exterior alterations are to the structure, whether it's like I'm getting a new patio in the backyard, or you're getting a new walkway, and those kinds of things I think we want to talk about. But gardens, I just feel like, I mean, I am in agreement with Rebecca and your idea after saying, let's just take it out. I think that the days of just having a neat and trim mowed lawn, I think that's the original intention with the original guidelines, right? Like, get out there and mow your lawn, keep everything nice and neat. And I think now it's more.
Well, like I said, I got convinced the other way, but the thing I'm still struggling with, and eventually we're just gonna have to vote and see what happens. The thing I'm still struggling with is I feel like we're looking at anything we're listing as a guideline as a prohibition, and it's not. They're meant to be just that. They're meant to be, really guidelines, not just for our protection so that we can enforce things, but also for,
Right.
The residents' protection. Quite frankly, do I care if my next door neighbor changes their door from white to off-white? No, but we even, make them apply to that, and it's documented, and then it gets approved, and they don't have a problem with that later. So.
But you would have a problem if your neighbor wanted to paint their door neon orange. Well, maybe you wouldn't, but that would be less desirable, right? So that kind of
Yes.
is definitely understandable. There are certain very negative additions that can be made to the neighborhood through changes like that. If Char suddenly decided that she wanted a neon yellow house, I'm not sure that would really fit with her street, and that might, cause some problems and some property values going down. So I can understand on things like that. But as far as the size and shape of the garden in your yard and the ratio of grass and all that, that's
So-
not going to make our property values go down. The maintenance of it will, and I definitely think we need that, because that's really important.
So
But
here's
that's the
the
whole
other thing, and this is where I was actually saying last time was, well, then just take out the requirement about the size or whatever, take that out. and I'm still not totally convinced we can't, but I don't think we can eliminate the whole garden section unless we write something else totally different, because you know, when we think of a garden, we might all be thinking of it as one thing, right? You take the hoe, you strip away the grass, you plant some stuff, you have a garden. But a lot of gardens end up having other structures to them, right? They're on a slope, so people want a terrace, or they put other things up. And all of those things, I believe, are also covered in that garden section. So if we
I'm
write that
totally-
out,
Yeah, no, I'm with you on that, Jonathan. I just that the top two things, garden is within 15 feet from the rear and the 200 square feet. The rest of it makes sense because that's more permanent things and that's maintenance.
those are the
That's-
things I was suggesting we just get rid of last time, and I forget exactly what Karina's concern was.
Karina's concern is that when she is looking at it, she is looking at it in not only, like you said, how if there is something, whether it's a letter of compliance, whether there's a complaint, whether it's an interpretation, when we're looking at making guidelines to go along with the covenants, we are trying to make it clearer for residents. So when we make those guidelines, a resident might say, okay, you're saying I'm out of compliance because of my lawn is overgrown. If we don't have anything in place that specifically states what is considered in compliance, and I know, Rebecca, you keep on saying maintenance, but that is simply maintenance. It's not specifications to what a resident should, how they should be keeping their yard, how they should be having a garden. So I think Karina's big concern is if we take that out, and I want you also to know that this isn't something that we just arbitrarily decided needed to be in there. This is something that was discussed endlessly, especially after you pulled it out. Jonathan and Karen both mentioned it last week. I went in and asked Karina, you know, why is that in there? And both her and Carrie were in there with me during the discussion, and their point was if you take out all the specifications, you might as well not have a specification at all. But if you don't have a specification for what we are considered a guideline to help you be in compliance with the covenants, then there is no way that they have to enforce or to give a letter of compliance. Or if they say something is out of compliant, well, the resident says, well, why is it out of compliant? We really have very little to go on. And that's really, the guidelines are put in place to help the residents follow through with the covenants, because the covenants are there, they're not going anywhere. And, you know, we looked at other villages to see what they had. They all have that same exact line in about the 200 yards, 15 feet. And I know there was a point brought up that people could make patches of gardens and eventually fill their whole yard. Well, if that, when they go to leave and they want a letter of compliance, if that's what they've done and it hasn't been applied for, then that is kept on record. So it's basically to make it clearer for the homeowner as to what we're expecting, and it helps us enforce our job is to enforce the covenants.
So, but what you're saying is you're implying that we don't want people to have gardens more than 200 square feet. I guess I'm not understanding what would be out of compliance about having a well-maintained yard that's all garden. What about that would not be okay unless there was a provision that said you can't have that, which is basically what this is saying. Does that make
No,
sense?
it's not. It's see that
Right, you just have to apply for it.
Rebecca, unfortunately, to be blunt, that's where I think you go wrong with it.
No, I understand.
These
Not saying
guidelines
you
are saying
can't
this
have
is what you need to apply for, not this is what we don't want you to do.
Yeah, I get that. But I think you underestimate the burden that it is to apply for doing something like this. It's just one extra hurdle that is, I mean, unfair, I guess, unnecessary. Our architecture board struggles already with having enough volunteers looking at applications. So now we're creating another thing that they have to have applications, not creating it. It's been there. Why not take away another thing that they have to look at these applications for? I'm still not understanding what the worst case scenario is that we're trying to prevent against, I guess. What is the out of compliance that they're concerned about?
Well, the out of compliance would be an alteration to the exterior of your property without an approval.
without an approval.
So we're not judging what the alteration, it could
Right.
be any alteration. This is just one of many alterations and we're trying to cover those. You know, that's why we have a whole list of guidelines covering basically all the, all the different types of alterations to your exterior appearance you can do.
What would be an example,
What do you mean?
a specific example?
Really, anything, any
But
change
that
you make
doesn't-
to your property.
Help me see that in my mind.
So if. Let me think of an example. Well, I mean, obvious ones are when you put up a shed. Or when you add an addition.
But
or-
that's not a garden.
It's not a garden, but. Every change you make to your property according to the covenants is considered an alteration to your property. The guidelines are put in place to help you understand, okay, you sign an agreement that you would stay in compliance with the covenants. Therefore, these are guidelines to help you to understand when you make, if you want to make an alteration, okay. And if you apply and it's a little bit different, okay, these are guidelines. They're not black and white, end all be all. That's it. If you apply and your garden and the RAC members look at, and please note that RAC members were a part of the committee that went through, they went through every single guideline. 2 RAC members sat and literally piece by piece, along with the other committee members, went through every guideline. So the people who deal with this all the time, the covenant team, the RAC members, that's the language always goes back to the covenants. The
So-
covenants are what we have to enforce.
So let's look at this from the other perspective, and then I'm actually, as the chair, gonna say we're done, call the vote, and if it fails, and it's for the next architecture chair and RAC to deal with, because we're, we've been talking about that. Before the board even got this, when I was meeting with everyone, we spent more time on landscape and gardens than anything. But here's another perspective on this. We are actually implying in this that there is like a kind of a de minimis level of alteration where we're gonna let that slide. In theory, and under the covenants, we could say, an application is required for all garden beds regardless of size or anything else because it changes the appearance of your property. What we're actually saying here is, there's a point you can go to where we're gonna, okay, that's not worth your time to apply. It's not worth our time to track this. It's kind of a de minimis situation. It's in the back of your house, close to the structure. It's less than 200 square feet. You're not putting any other structures up. You're not interfering with any, just do that. This is what this is basically saying is, look, if it's a bit more than that, we're asking you to come in and apply. So, you can kind of look at this from 2 perspectives. You can look at this as, oh, we're against gardens. We're making it hard to have a garden. We're making you apply for this. Or you can look at this as, well, technically, you should be applying for any alteration you do to the exterior of your house. We're actually, giving you some leeway to do, some of this without having to come in and apply. But once it goes beyond a certain size or a certain location, please come in and apply so we can have all this documented as the alteration.
And that's.
Yeah, okay, sorry,
100
sorry,
square
Warren.
feet.
My last concern with all of that, and I totally understand what you're saying, but leaving a guideline like this in there opens up residents to the whims of the architecture board, really, in that you're saying, and Karina has said it before, people don't get turned down for this kind of thing. You can apply to have a big garden and nobody cares, but it's really up to whoever wants to volunteer for architecture chair. And Bill likes his grass, right? What if there were an extreme version of Bill on the architecture chair that said, I don't like other plants. We only like grass. So I'm not going to approve of anything that has gardens bigger than this. We're opening up our residents to whatever the architecture people like, not just chair, sorry, I kept saying that, the architecture board likes. And I'm not questioning them right now. We have great volunteers. but they are just volunteers. So providing a provision that would allow them to turn residents down from being able to do this kind of alteration that's not going to have a negative effect, it seems really unfair.
Well, that's not quite the process. The RAC doesn't get to decide anything. The RAC is advisory. And the architecture chair or whoever is acting in that capacity decides. And even they don't get a final decision, because if a resident doesn't like that, they can appeal to the fully elected board, which would be all 5 or 6 or 7, depending on the size of the board of us, hearing an appeal and deciding. And of course, the board is elected by the residents of Oakland Mills. So
And
well,
how many
well,
people are gonna
representative,
go?
we know that not many people vote, but in theory, it's representative.
And a piece of information, just to note that any alteration to your house, technically, you need to apply for, whether or not there's a guideline for it or not. The guidelines are there to help you, but according to the covenants, any alteration you make to any part of your property, you are supposed to apply for. And that is the covenants, and that's what our job is to enforce. The guidelines are simply there to help and with those interpret the covenants. But even if something you want on your property that isn't even mentioned in the guidelines, but it's a change to your property, you should really be applying for it. So putting it in the guidelines doesn't make it something that you have to apply for. Even if it wasn't in the guidelines, you would still have to apply if you were changing your property. The guidelines are simply there to help you. And I know you don't like those 2 pieces of it as far as the gardens, but that is what the guideline is to help the residents, frankly, with the covenants.
But your point is well taken. And I mean, and since it is pick on Bill night, and again, in theory, right, in theory, if Bill were the architecture chair, looking at all the RAC recommendations, and then making the final decision, Bill could just decide that every application that comes in to replace siding is going to be denied by Bill unless that siding color is green. Because we know that Bill only wants to see green.
All right,
I mean, in theory, he could do that. It would be wrong. But in theory, he could do that. And then, of course, the residents have the right to appeal to the full board, and hopefully the full board wouldn't think, oh my gosh, every home in Oakland Mills needs to be green. That's the safeguard against something like that. But, the other thing I think we have to hope for is that we would have our board would select for itself an architecture chair who's also reasonable. And I'm not saying Bill's not, right? I'm creating an extreme example since we're using Bill as, but we even know, Bill would be reasonable, right? Bill's not going to say every house has to be green. But yeah, I mean, technically, what you're saying could happen if you had some, crazy architecture chairperson who thinks things should only be one way, ignores the RAC's recommendations, does their own thing, and says, deal with it with the whole board on your appeal. I don't know if we've ever had anyone in that seat in the 53 years that we've existed, but there are protections should that happen. And probably if something like that happened, I would guess that the rest of the board, when they're, hearing appeals every meeting and spending hours on appeals, would probably call a vote to appoint a new architecture chair before that went on for too long.
Sure, that's just a tall burden to ask of our residents if they want to plant a garden in their front yard and then they get turned down and then they have to go through the appeal process. I mean, I don't know, it seems unnecessary. But go ahead, call the vote. You've heard all my points. You've heard all my feelings on the matter.
Yeah, well, and we still have one more thing. We do have fences because we did not discuss fences in the community meeting, did we?
Yeah.
So right now, our guideline on fences for 15, guideline 15 says you need an application for all new fences. Open space is important to us. Preservation of green space is important to us. So there are preferences stated for 3 or 4 board split rail or paddock style fences. Other types will be considered based on their appearance in relation to the house and compatibility, blah, blah, blah. Then in 15.6, there is the general guideline that vinyl and chain link fences will not be approved.
It's a guy.
It's a guideline. It is interesting that a guideline, it is kind of interesting to me that in a guideline, we would state that something will or will not be approved. Usually in a guideline, you're, maybe encouraging or discouraging, but it almost makes it sound like a rule, but really it isn't, right? Because the covenants themselves don't speak to that, do they, Brigitte?
No. I don't believe so. I don't have the covenants memorized by heart. I would have to look at them.
Because
I don't think
it's interesting, because
it makes
only
sense.
15.6.1 about vinyl and chain link says will not be approved, which sounds like stronger language than you would expect from a guideline. Because like iron and hedge says typically not approved for property line. 15.6.3, about height says should not exceed, not will not, or will not be approved. It's only on vinyl and chain link where we actually say will not be approved, which
I feel like I've seen some vinyl. When we're talking vinyl, are we talking about like the same thing, like the railings for the Trex decks and things like that? People are using they're not doing wood, like my deck is not wood, my deck is Trex decking, right?
For vinyl, I think the big white.
I was
Right.
thinking that those big white like PVC
Yeah.
looking fences,
I
yeah,
feel like
Yeah.
I've seen this in our village.
I feel like I've seen them too. But they may
So
have been
Bill,
not
would-
approved, not approved, yeah.
Bill, would you be okay, or do you want something stronger? Would you be okay if we just changed it to are typically not approved? Or do you want to delete that provision totally?
Well, I brought it up for discussion, and Jonathan made a good point about it's being totally denied. Yes, if it were changed slightly so that it appears more like the wording with the other kinds of fences would not typically be approved or whatever, or something like that, that'd be fine, so that it's open to be looked at. And the only reason I brought this up was I was looking at the issues of maintenance on fences and openness. And that I said chain link's about as open as a fencing as you can get. And if you get good quality dark colored chain link, it'll last a long time like the stuff at SAC, because I'm tired of seeing split rail fences that aren't maintained well, that have the wire mesh attached to the inside of them. That wire mesh is a very thin grade of wire. It gets bent, so it doesn't look that good. And I thought, that fence at SAC has been there 20 years. That looks better than the split rail that isn't maintained and the bent metal mesh inside. So I thought, well, let's just bring it up for discussion, okay? And if we say no, leave it as is, I'm fine with that. I just wanted to bring it up because it does maintain a lot of openness. When it's dark colored, it blends in and it's long lasting, low maintenance. So those are my only thoughts. And if we leave it as is, fine. If we modify it so that it's not expressly disallowed and could be considered, that's fine too. I just really wanted to bring it up for those reasons.
I will point something out. It says these will not be approved, and CA is ultimately the organization that has to take a resident to court on our behalf if they have a violation. CA itself around the pools, and also at least at Stevens Forest around the playground behind the neighborhood center, what do they use?
Chain link.
Chain link fence, and it's not even dark chain link, it's just the bare aluminum, and it's not even in wonderful shape. So it does, while I'm kind of ambivalent on whether we need to explicitly say that it's okay, it does sort of, going back to my thing about why do we say will not, like why are we taking the decision out of the hands of the architecture chair and the board? It does kind of bother me that our guideline says we will not approve something that CA does right here in our village.
Right,
Mm.
I think that's
That's a good
that's
point.
also
That's a good point.
safety. To make sure nobody can walk into the pool and drown.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
I mean, that's
But
what it's
but
for.
other kinds of fences can serve that purpose as well, but, you know, they go with chain link,
Yeah, you'd have to climb over a chain link
Yeah.
fence, so.
It
as
can be
opposed
done.
to a-
but
I
As
know.
opposed to a rail fence, a
Right.
split rail, you can just, a kid can climb through it.
Right.
I mean, I'm not a fan of chain link fences. I just always think of them as, you know, in my neighborhood, that's where the vicious dog was always behind the chain link fence. And that's kind of what I think of when I think of a chain link fence. So I personally wouldn't want that as my neighbor's fence. But if it was changed to typically, you know, it's typically not approved, I would think that would be fine. I would go with that, because I can see a case where someone wants to have a fence to, I don't know, to catch the balls in the back or something, you know, so you don't have to chase them into the open space or something like that, or the neighbor's yard. You know, because it's like you said, your thing, they seem to hold up well, and you can have at Oakland Mills High School, you know, people threw balls against that for years, and it looks pretty good still. So I think there might be a case
go up
for it.
closer to it,
What's that?
go up closer
If
to
they
it.
do get bent, if they get bent,
Yeah, this is real.
they installed a chain link fence at the basketball courts next to Locust Park Pool. Because the kids were playing basketball and their balls kept rolling into the street, so
Sure.
they put a fence up there and from a distance, it doesn't look bad, but if you get up close. You can tell people lean on it, that kind of stuff, it does get bent.
But that's maintenance, right? I mean,
Yeah.
regardless of the kind of fence you have to keep it in good repair.
So personally, I'm not a fan, but I would be welcome to adding that clause typically.
I'm gonna echo that. I am not a fan of chain link fences. I think that it will change the, look of certain neighborhoods. Some may not be for the better. I mean, I grew up in California, and in SoCal, that's like the town of chain link fences, and they do have a lot of older homes with those chain link fences. And it's just not a good look, no matter how new they are when you put them up, because the homes are a lot older. Everyone is not going to be on the same maintenance plan as far as keeping it up, and it just doesn't look good. And when you have to live there and you own a property that's next door or near there on the same street, you just get tired of looking at it. And if there's really nothing that you can do about it, then it just doesn't make for a happy homeowner.
I will say this, all our fences are in people's backyards, they're not in the front yards.
Right.
Don't have people who fence, we can't think of any examples where someone is fenced in their front yard.
We
But
generally
maybe their
don't,
side
we
yard,
generally don't let it happen.
right, you're not.
It
you're not
usually,
supposed to, right?
it's supposed to align with the rear corner of the property and go back.
So I asked Carrie, because Carrie does probably know the covenants by heart, and I asked her if they're, and I looked, and it's not specifically written in there. She said it's just always been considered inappropriate, and all of the villages have never, they have it in not to allow them, so there's not anything in the covenants that specifically state.
I have a feeling it's a visual that it doesn't
Yeah.
look classy. That's.
And that's why I sent photos of
Yeah,
homes that are upscale
right,
with the fence.
Sure.
I mean, I agree with Char and Warren. I personally would not want my neighbors to have a chain link fence. But I will tell you, I am tired of the stray dogs that get out of the broken wooden fences. Throughout our neighborhood, I feel like there's always a stray dog running around. So maybe if that would keep them inside, I don't know.
But then you'd have to look at it day in and day out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. That's a good way to think. Would I want my neighbor to do this?
Yeah.
The commercial has ever only been the exception. For
yeah.
commercial.
If you're in Thunder Hill, if you go down to the pool, obviously that is chain link, and I think that the nursery school, the daycare center that's there has a chain link fence around their play area.
Right.
And that needs some maintenance as well.
Oh, that we won't get started on that place.
Yeah. So all the neighbors that have
Yeah.
to live across the street that are forced to look at it day in and day out. I wouldn't want to live there and have to look at that every time I come home and every time I leave. to have, you know,
Combined with their beautiful turf lawn that they now have.
And again, to go back to that, where I keep saying, well, these guidelines aren't really supposed to be prohibitive. They're supposed to be, they're supposed to guide you and allow for documentation, I'd be hypocritical, and I feel this way if I said, well, anything that says, will not, that's too strong for a guideline. So I do like the idea of softening that. And then, let the RAC take a look, let the architecture share take a look, let the board take a look on an appeal. Because I could see some I'm not personally a fan either. I mean, I'm personally just not a fan of fences, but I understand sometimes you need to have them because you have a dog or whatever. But I can understand where there might be some cases where you might allow that. For example, if your property backs up to basically nothing but woods and you're putting the fence back there, well, probably really only you see it from your house. No one else is seeing it. So, maybe that's one where we'd say, okay, that'll be better because, the wood back there where it's always damp and moist and it doesn't get a lot of sun, it's going to be rotting all the time anyway. Just go ahead and do your dark chain link and your yard will be fenced in, but no one else will see it. Maybe that would be something we'd say okay to. If you have a will not, the person would never even try to apply. If you soften that language up, maybe they will, and maybe it will get allowed every once in a while.
So you want me to add typically in there as? Well, not typically?
Yeah, I mean, I do think we should just take away the will not.
So final and chain link fences will typically, we are not.
That line underneath of it are typically not.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay,
It's strange, the two different tenses to begin with. One will not be approved and
Yeah.
are approved. Anyway.
Okay.
Have we beat this dog?
Oh my gosh.
Sorry.
you gotta feel real good with that one. Speaking of-
Yeah, unless you want me to go out on another site visit to check a few things and see if I can wreck the other two cars.
Please don't.
I've got another month and a half left in this board to make it a trifecta.
So this isn't, we're not voting on the final guidelines. This is the draft guidelines that we send
For
to
submission to
CA.
CA for legal review.
Then
right?
they send them back with any comments and we incorporate their comments and then we have to vote on the final,
Right.
excuse me.
So we have another route.
We do have another vote on these guidelines after CA legal looks at them.
Once legal looks at them, like if we do any changes.
Right, it would just
It
be
would have to
according to
go.
what the CA.
But like I said, when we send them to legal, because of the public feedback we got and because of the amount of time we spent discussing in here, instead of sending it to them and say, here it is, look at everything. Obviously they have to look at everything, but I also would like, us to add something to that communication, along the lines of, there had been discussion, there had been, community feedback about compliance with, and I forget the exact public law, but basically the state law that says you can't place excessive burden on certain sustainability or environmental projects. Please look at these sections within that context and advise whether we're within the parameters of that law. Like I said, they should be looking at everything
I'm sure
anyway,
they
but
would be,
it's always good to point out in case they're sort of giving it the cursory look and instead of the in-depth.
And Jonathan, or maybe Brigitte, what happens if this does not pass?
Right?
Yeah.
Then, what, I guess we would have to make some changes so it could be passed, because ultimately we would like to have, I mean, we want to have new guidelines. So,
Well, the old ones would just stay in effect until we
the
adopt
old
new
ones
ones,
will
though.
just stay in effect until we have approved, finalized new guidelines, yes.
So I think that it's not a perfect document, but I think it's a lot better than it was. So I think I'm willing to let it go forward.
Please motion, Lauren,
I
please.
motion that we accept, this document.
Could you motion that we will send this document to
We'll send
CA
this-
Legal for review?
Yes.
That's what we're doing.
Send this document to.
We're not
CA.
accepting or adopting them yet. We're just sending them on for the legal review. Okay,
Second,
all right. Any further discussion? All right, all in favor of sending them on? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 0, 0.
Whew,
Oh,
baby.
thank goodness, because, you know,
if you're having a tough time, there's some snacks, snacks.
otherwise, I was just gonna get in my car and run into things on the way home, maybe, just, to, you know.
Why don't you just?
Side question.
Yeah, I'm gonna run through that crater in front of LA Mart and then maybe, you know, maybe actually just, you know, crash through the hill at the school, so they have to do
There you
something
go.
about the hill and, yeah.
A side question. This took us,
Yeah, I'll just keep going in, I'll keep going in circles, hitting things, so that they have to log like, you know, 25 crashes in 1 hour, you know.
this took us 6 years to rewrite these, and the guidelines say every, what, hold on. What does it say? Every 3 to 4 years or something? How do we prevent it from being like that? How do we make sure that we are actually?
Yeah, we,
And having architectural.
Don't have a pandemic.
and not having acting architectural chairs, because quite honestly, I just did this because I knew it needed to be done. I would have preferred to have done this with the permanent architecture chair, but that could have meant up to another year. So we, you know, I said to Brigida, well, we need to do it. So we did it. But if you think about it, you know, even coming out of the pandemic, we had trouble having a full year architecture chair. We had, you know, actors last year. We had Lynn kind of come out of retirement because no one else wanted to do it. So we haven't had that since these came due and the pandemic hit. That I think would have been the year. We haven't had that consistent, you know, architecture chair to help marshal this through. And I'm not taking a lot of credit here because this was really Brigida. I mean, I said, let's go ahead and do it, but I probably did not put as much time into this as previous architecture chairs have in the past, just because I just didn't have the kind of time previous architecture chairs have had to put into it. But, you know, obviously I did have, you know, a series of meetings with Brigida and the Covenant staff, you know, had conversations with David Smith, who's the chairperson of the RAC, and we just got it done. But we know when it should happen on the calendar. You know, we also just we need the ability to get it done. We need enough of volunteers in the right positions to be able to get it done.
And we barely get enough on the board.
Yeah. And I don't know, I mean, we shouldn't prolong this tonight because it's getting late. I don't know if there's something, for example, we could do in the future to make this easier. I'd have to look at documents. Brigida's giving me a look like, where is he gonna go with this? But, you know, could we establish some kind of a more iterative process where like maybe we break the guidelines, you know, into pieces and we say, we're only gonna focus on, you know, 1 through 10 in this year, and then the next year we'll do 11 through 20, and then the next year we'll do 21 through 30 or something like that.
And to be
That
honest,
is how you should do it.
we're the only requirement is that we do, and it's, requirement, I don't know if that's the right word, is that we do go back and look at the covenants because things change, obviously, laws change, things change. And we want to be as helpful as possible. New things come about that residents are wondering about. So some villages do, change only a part of their guidelines. You know, like maybe, like you said, maybe every couple of years we focus on a certain number and then we focus. It's really up to us how we want to do it. I think the important thing is that, like you said, Rebecca, is that we do change them. We do look at up and coming things and I think too that just because these guidelines, I mean, the ones from 2017 have been in place for a while and there's several things that have changed during that course of time. If those things come about and we know that there's a change, I don't think there's anything preventing us from having a conversation about that.
That was going to be my next question.
I
You know,
can't imagine why
you
there
know,
would be.
Suppose there's, just to pick something, so suppose a year from now, there's some, big advance in EV chargers and the county changes what it's going to permit and the whole appearance of them changes, stuff like that. I don't see why we would want to wait if we know something needs to be done. Seems like we should have the flexibility to be able to focus in on part of the guidelines and say, we're gonna look into changing this now and do that. Kind of like what we're saying we're gonna do with fast track, where we're saying, okay, we're gonna start with this, but we may add things, we may remove things if they don't work well for fast track.
Right. And I think too, also remembering that these are guidelines based on what we know now. So when you bring something to the RAC as an application, it's our job here to stay abreast of new laws and new things. So if something comes to the RAC and they're saying, oh, this is new, how does it fit into what we currently have and how they're going to take it based on knowing all the up-to-date information, even if it's not necessarily specifically stated in the guidelines. Because every application is taken on its own accord.
I'm gonna add gargoyles and gables.
Gargoyles and gables?
Gargoyles and gables. Why else? That'll be something new.
Yeah.
Typically not approved.
Typically not. Or
What
will
about-
not be.
What about gargoyles and gardens?
There you go.
There you go.
Green gargoyles and gardens under your gable.
All right.
Warren's done. Warren's done. Hey, look at that board chair report. Obviously, work has started over at the future 7-Eleven, which is nice to see. The other thing I was actually going to report on is just the interactions I'm having with our county officials, Ashley included, about the commercial parking. New issues are starting to pop up, but I think we covered that when Paul spoke in Resident Speak Out. So just letting you know, I am in touch and exchanging emails back and forth on basically kind of a weekly basis now. I think really that is everything. So it's late. I'm gonna toss it over to Karen.
Okay, I'll try to be fast. So 3 updates. The first thing is on the easement policy that I put in front of you guys a couple weeks ago and everyone discussed, and I appreciate that. Is that at the last board meeting, there was a pretty robust discussion. Again, my policy proposal was not included in the packet, and I was really disturbed by that. However, the agreement was that all of the information, including what I had written, would be taken and the staff would work on crafting something that we will look at not this Thursday, but again in 2 weeks. So initially, the next meeting that we're going to talk about the easement policy was going to be this Thursday, but it moved, and that allowed Bill and the team to come in with play areas. We're able to get play areas pushed up into that slot. So I'm very concerned about what the staff will come up with, just based on the discussions that we had. The 2 critical elements of the policy that I created that I want to make sure in there are resident notification when CA is engaging in big projects, and then also the independent appraisal of the work that's being done to make sure that CA is getting fair consideration. So I'm interested to see what we see in 2 weeks. But that will be on the agenda if anybody wants to, watch or come to Resident Speak Out. The other thing the board is gonna talk about this Thursday is the strategic plan. I don't know if any of you guys watched the board meeting 2 weeks ago. I was extremely frustrated with the people who are writing the strategic plan because I don't know what the vision is for what we're trying to be. Where are we gonna be in 5 years? A lot of it seems like it's the same old stuff that we've always had in the strategic plan. There's a lot of outreach in there and things like that, but I don't see anything that's really transformative, which I think when you're staring down a climate emergency, when you've just come out of a pandemic and all the things that are going on in the world, that there needs to be something transformative, some transformative language in the policy. So, I'm planning to spend a lot of time tomorrow reading through it again, the one that's being presented on Thursday, so that I can give hopefully constructive feedback on that on Thursday. But one of the things that's really high priority for me is making our facilities and programs affordable. And I keep saying this at the board meetings, is that only 25% of our residents are members of any programs and facilities, and yet they're all paying their annual charge, whether it's through their rent or their homeowners. And so they're subsidizing these facilities that many of them cannot afford to belong to. So of course, you guys know that I am gonna push again this year to try to make summer pools free, at least in the month of July, at least to get the financial analysis of that done. So, and that's the kind of thing that I would like to see in the strategic plan, is that one of the things we're doing is making sure that what we have is wanted by the residents and that it's affordable. So, last thing is we are knee deep in the presidential hire. We're interviewing candidates. And I really can't say anything else, but that we really are hopeful that we'll have somebody in place when the new board term starts. So I think we're on a good track for that. And as soon as I can publicly speak more, I definitely will fill you guys in. The other thing is, before I finish, Brigida, I had reached out to Brigida, and I think I copied all of you guys, is that I would like us to get on the new president's calendar as soon as we possibly can, to kind of like have a meet and greet with the village board of Oakland Mills and let the person know, you know, all about us and find out all about them. But they're not, you know, they took my request, but they're not willing to start filling up the new president's calendar, the to be named president's calendar just yet. They want to wait till they're actually here and they can get kind of a lay of the land. So, but of course, once I know who it's going to be, I'll push for that again. So, any questions? Okay.
I really like your free pools. I think that's awesome.
Thank you.
Any way we can help.
All right, thank you very much. Brigida.
You have my report. Construction is all done. They are officially gone. We are we've done a thorough cleaning. Judd fit everything into our closets upstairs. If you have a moment during the week and you'd like to stop by, we'd love to give you a tour. Bill and Jonathan got a tour last week. And I think they thought it looked pretty good. Tomorrow we have a big staff cleaning. Everybody's wearing their scrubs and we're really doing a big once over the entire, every single closet as much as we get through. So, and on the bottom of my report, you'll see miscellaneous. Those are things that I sent out email updates about regarding the 7-Eleven, about the Oakland Mills Village parking lot, and about all of the great news from DPZ regarding the traffic upgrades. So we will keep an eye on that. I haven't gotten any more information about an official plan for the 7-Eleven lot. I did several phone calls after everybody was so excited to see it there. I think I just didn't believe it was actually happening. So I wanted to call, and everything was approved by the zoning board on the 21st of February, but nothing was sent out or anything. So, but the woman who was there told me as much as she could, and then told me where I could find further information. So, if I find anything else out, I will let you know. And I will certainly follow up on the trees. Starting April, we have lots of events. Amy has been working very hard on all of them, so I really hope to see, if you're around Earth Day, there's a lot of great things going on. And the flower sale, Jazz in the Mills, really, really great stuff. So I hope if you can, you stop by for at least one of them. And that's all I have.
So it's funny because if you go to the zoning board website, which is, Howard County Council, because they're the zoning board, and you search for decisions and orders of the zoning board, it hasn't been updated
Yeah,
since
there's
twenty
nothing there,
twenty-two.
yeah.
there.
I
Yeah,
have looked at
it
every
hasn't been
angle.
updated since 22.
Mhm.
I got that plan off of the zoning board map, interactive map on the Howard County website. Karina and I did a search for it, and that's where the one that I sent you with the plans. That's where we got our next step, but I even was typing in different word combinations to see if something would come up, but it wasn't.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Oh, one other piece of note, I'm sure you hear the alarm beeping. Our
Yes.
alarm has been acting quirky, so pay no attention to that beeping. Just know that.
So bringing that up makes it even harder. Not paying attention.
I know, maybe that's why I said it, to keep you awake, that annoying little beep,
Listen,
yeah,
to listen for that sound,
Yeah.
yeah, that's when somebody's coming to the door, so
yes,
we're all like. Somebody's coming in,
Yeah.
somebody's coming in.
it's just going off.
I got an email about my building at work last week, the headquarters building, and it basically said, at this, like at 6 p.m. this evening, we're gonna be testing the fire alarm system, so if you're in the building and you
Yeah.
hear the alarms, it's nothing, and I thought, but
Right.
what if there
Sounds
were
good.
a real fire?
Yeah.
Like, how would you know? I always worry when they say, oh, just ignore the
Yeah.
alarm, we're testing it. Well, what if something really happened?
It'll
Anyway.
feel like they turned up first.
Yeah,
I mean, that did happen on 9/11, right, where they told people they could go back
Yeah.
upstairs, and so they should have kept.
yeah.
That's what they tell you, keep
They've
evacuating.
had a lot of false alarms, but when we smelled smoke, that's when we.
That's when yeah.
Yeah,
All right, committee reports. Architecture, no. No more
Had enough.
architecture today.
I don't know.
No. Education, I actually, I gave the education committee a break. We didn't meet today because it's spring break, so I didn't know if anyone would come anyway. But just education related, there is, I was exchanging some information with Jolene Mosley when it comes, she's on the I'm sorry, I'm all over the place. She's on this committee that the school system has formed, to look at basically how they should do the capital budget and capital plan, I guess, kind of, reforming the process. So, she reached out to me for my input, and, what she's looking for is, are there just some, objective criteria we could use to create this plan instead of doing this Hunger Games every year where things get tossed everywhere. So, basically the feedback I gave is what we've discussed in here before. First of all, a capital budget and a capital plan, like those are your big expenditures that require a lot of money and a lot of planning. It makes no sense that you can toss that up in the air every year and completely change it. Like you need to find some way of, locking that in and making it an iterative process where once you have, that 10-year plan and you get to next year, okay, everything moves up a year, and what you're really debating is what you're putting out in the new year 10, not shuffling everything else. With obviously some exceptions if there's an emergency or something. Obviously, if a building catches fire, you need to do something about that. You can't say, we'll take care of that in year 15. You need the building now. And in terms of criteria, because again, they just use so many different data points to kind of make the argument for whatever they want to make. I said, if the school system still uses, the definition for full systemic renovation, which is like what these two buildings have never had. They opened in 72 and 73, they've never had that. I said, could we simplify it, start there, stop, kind of cherry picking and saying, Oakland Mills High School was renovated in 2004. It wasn't. You put an addition on the back, you bumped out the cafeteria. If you go to the original parts of the building, everything's the same. Everything behind the walls is the same. All the systems are the same. That's why things are failing. So rank them by their last full systemic renovation. If they haven't had one, then the year they were built was their last full systemic renovation. Don't do one further down the list until you've taken care of the ones higher up the list. And that means you take care of Oakland Mills, you take care of Centennial, you take care of Dunlogan, before you take care of some of these, the others. So, those were basically the suggestions I gave, because some of the other things they're looking at, it just starts to make it look absurd. Like if you look at the state's assessment for facility condition, believe it or not, River Hill and Wild Lake, which were built in the 90s, have a higher facility condition index value, which means worse than Oakland Mills High. And how is that? Well, because everything's weighted kind of equally. So Oakland Mills High has this $110 million HVAC system that's completely failing on it, and that seems to carry the same weight as, well, River Hill has some windows that leak. So I mean that was that was basically the type of feedback I gave. Like I mean in many ways I was saying, could we apply some common sense? But since you can't just say that's your policy, I said rank them by when they were built / their full systemic renovation. If they never had one, then that is when they were built. Because if you look at Oakland Mills High, look at Oakland Mills Middle, and look at like I have the MPIA, if you look at the list of their major systems, they have a column that says last, replaced or renovated. And for their major systems, a bunch of times those years say 1972 or 1973, which means never. And then, there's, like I said, there's some common sense and logic to it. Yeah, sure, Centennial needs to be done too, except Centennial says 1977. Oakland Mills says 1973. So you do Oakland Mills, and then next up you do Centennial, and then next up you do 1978, or or whatever came next. So that's basically the feedback I gave. She also did something really neat. She did a Python program, and it's really neat. I could show you all when we have more time. She actually wrote a Python program that looks at all the fees from the elementary schools to the middle schools to the high schools, and she made a visualization. And you can see all the feeds going into all the different schools, and it all ends up at the high schools. Because one of the things I've talked about is how the school system selectively defines which schools could provide relief to which other schools and puts them in regions and says we should invest in them. And somehow Oakland Mills High always ends up in a region all by itself, even though it's surrounded by crowded schools. So she did this, and when you look at that and you look at the lines going in, well, guess what? When you look at the elementary schools to the middle schools, and then you look at the lines going into Oakland Mills High has, I want to say, 4 lines going into it now from 4 different middle schools, because you have Oakland Mills Middle going into it, you have parts of Mayfield Woods, you have parts of Lake Elkhorn, and then you have, what am I missing? There's something else.
There's something in Oak Ridge. Don't we get kids from Oak Ridge?
Yes, yes. So I look at that, and then I look at some of the other schools that have been identified as able to relieve other schools, and I'm like, but they don't have as many lines going to them. So how can we say they get investment because they can relieve other nearby schools when our school has more lines going to it already? And she said, exactly. I said, I think that's great, use that. So just some stuff that was going back and forth, not something we were discussing in the education committee because we didn't have it, but just some interesting stuff to hopefully bring better outcomes and get rid of the what I call the capital budget and capital plan Hunger Games every year, where they everything just gets tossed into the air again, and you have people spending long nights out, trying to convince the Board of Education that their school did not magically, improve in its condition since last year. Therefore, why are you trying to knock it down, 10 spaces or something like that?
Karina Fisher was in tears this weekend talking to Clarence Lamb about what happened with Dunlop and how bad that school is. The condition that school is in.
Yeah,
So it's very upsetting for everyone. So she was very upset about schools that get to, what she said, jump the line.
mhm.
Mhm.
So.
But you know what? I've seen some behind the scene things, they think that Oakland Mills Middle kind of jumped the line, but it's a year older. So again, if you go by that ranking, those two are right where they should be. I mean, Dunlogan desperately needs it too, but if you just go by, you know, when they were built, when they were last taken care of, you would do Oakland Mills Middle, and then you would do Dunlogan, and then you would do Oakland Mills High. So they kind of have that order at the top right, even though, you know, the people who are 2 and 3 behind may not like it, right?
Right.
I'm sure there are families out there at Oakland Mills High who never went through Oakland Mills Middle going, why isn't the high school getting done before the middle school? In fact, I've seen that. I've been asked that. And then I say, well, you know, the middle school is 1972, the high school is 1973, and they go, oh, okay, that makes sense.
Mhm.
But the high school is almost like it's had a fire. It's got a lot of mold issues, which is kind of an emergency, so.
That emergency's been going on for 20 years.
Did you hear what happened at the middle school last week?
What?
The heat got stuck on,
Oh, my God.
Oh,
but
God.
everyone was already in the building, so they didn't close it down. So actually, my daughter came home because she said it was unbearable. She was feeling sick.
I went to the
And-
play Friday night. It was, I mean, it was hot anyway because of all the people, but I
think
was
this was
not really
Thursday.
good.
I think this was Thursday that this, I
It
can't,
was
it wasn't
Friday
Friday,
night.
because my daughter went to the play Friday night.
It was
Um,
hot.
but she, you know, maybe this is TMI, but she said like people were like going to the nurse feeling like they were gonna pass out. She said
Yeah.
one kid vomited in the classroom or in the hall or something. Yeah, the heat got stuck on.
Wow.
It's weird.
So, yeah, both of those buildings are not great situations at all.
No, no, no.
Anyway, Warren, public space.
I'm so sorry I couldn't go on the walk last week. That was really frustrating.
The walk was really cool. We had 12 people go. We followed the south entrance trail. This is phase 2 of that, which goes from Stevens Forest. What is that? East along the river, the Little Patuxent River, and we actually walked all the way to where we have to ford the river to go any further, so we went. And the main reason we went was to confirm what Chris Singleton had mentioned, is that there's been some encroachment on CA land by some of the residents there. And I saw it firsthand, so I know that that's true, and apparently some of that's been going on for
Ever.
a long time, over 10 years probably. So there's a basketball court there that's with a concrete slab that's sitting on it.
It's amazing.
Yeah, that's there on that, according to the Howard County GIS, it's on CA property, so. Want to make sure you knew that, so you can,
It's been a discussion. It's been a
Good.
discussion at the board, so I think the board is aware of it.
good, and Jason Heath was on the walk.
Oh, okay,
So
good.
he knows about it, and he saw a few other places. There's a place where people have fences that are out or past where the electrical poles are, the telephone poles, so there's some other
They-
areas.
Why would you want that?
Why would they include the telephone poles in their fence? Like in their fenced-in area, they put it's around the telephone pole?
Well, it goes past it, yeah.
They
So
just
they have a little bit more land,
property.
Yeah.
more property. Yeah. So,
Well, who's the-
but he's aware of all that now, so he noticed that, and took some pictures of that. So, the next steps on that, recommended by the county was they wanted to wait until they finished phase 1, which goes to Stevens Forest. And then push the next, county council to try to get the next phase going. Now, there's 2 options on phase 2. One of them is to go up Stevens Forest Road to Broken Land and and build a path, a multi-use path along Broken Land. And I made the same face you did.
It's kind of
So
scary.
that's-
Yeah.
Broken
that's-
Land is scary.
It is, but it would be separate, it wouldn't be on there, but I mean, one is beautiful, we saw an owl, we saw 2 fox, We saw deer, we saw lots of birds. It's just pretty. The river's gorgeous. And then you have broken land. So there's your options, right? So we really would like to see it there, so. The other thing is, the street light has been replaced. It's only taken a year, but. So Mellenbrook and Log Chain, there's a new street light, and now you can see the crosswalk at night. So that's a safety issue. Thank you, Bob Marietta, for bringing that to my attention. I just put in a C-click fix, and then I called Ashley, and she told me to call this guy, and he actually called me, Dennis, can't remember his last name, but he's the street light guy for the county. And it happened, so. And that's it.
Oh, come on, Mark. I know we circulated this over email, but still, we're in an open meeting. You should be jumping for joy and bragging. Broken land in Stevens Forest,
Yeah.
that thing that field trip you had, what that's led
yes,
to? Come on.
This is true. Forgot all about that. So that's the one where Bill, he did the crossing. Tried to go across broken land and was felt very unsafe, right?
Yes,
Almost got hit, right? So
just
now
by police car.
I didn't know it was a police car.
Howard County Police Car.
You didn't share that part when we went on our tour.
Howard County Police Car. With no lights, no siren.
So I mean, they're going to put in a lead pedestrian interval. They're going to put in the crosswalk with a pedestrian signal going across Stevens Forest on the north side of Broken Land. And it's all the stuff that we wrote in the letter. So I think if that was a great, you and I worked on that letter and all of us did. So yay. That was a shock that
Yes.
showed up. I was like, what? And I do think it sounds a lot like the letter that I hand delivered to Chris Chigarapu at the meeting last month. Might have prompted that. Let's hope. All right, that's it.
Yeah, that to me is the
That was
complete,
that will be
jump to
big.
joy one.
So you'll have that, and you'll have the multi-use pass that go up to parallel lane on Stevens Forest.
Mhm.
So that'll make it a lot better.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Do you happen to know, Warren, I'm just thinking about your walk and the options for where that path can go. Do you happen to know what's happening right now on on Broken Land, opposite, Cradle Rock? Where they've basically like cleared the land and they have platforms to hold heavy equipment and they're doing stuff back in the
Yeah,
woods.
we looked at that.
Does
I
that
think it's a
have anything to do with this or is that something else?
stream restoration?
Okay.
I thought they were fixing pipes.
I thought they were fixing pipes too.
They're fixing posts.
Oh,
I
is
think
that
that's
what
what
they're
they
doing?
said at that Owen Brown board meeting.
They have a bridge there that I would love for them to look at. It's a construction bridge
Yeah,
and it takes you right into it. It would be
Yeah.
great to have.
Yeah, I mean, I saw that back there and I thought, is this? Are they starting phase 2 before they finish phase 1? What is
Yeah,
going on
yeah.
back there? Okay,
Yeah, it's not at all related.
okay, all right. Thank you. All right, let's do the bulletin board, Amy.
No, I've got a couple of things. First of all, I just told her. I have never seen this on this side of that four-way stop, so somebody blew through the stop sign. And they were like driving slow actually before that. I don't know, they were just space cadet. I've seen them like coming up the hill. Run the stop sign, but I've never seen anybody in front of me. Run the stop sign coming towards the other barn from like Broken Land area. Yeah, they just went right through it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, there was a
You need
pedestrian,
to
but
hang
they
out
were
there.
going across this way, they were crossing that way, so. But yeah,
Yeah,
I'm just like, whatever. I mean, it's pretty obvious there's stop signs there. But next Friday, not this Friday, but next week on Friday is Lively Arts Pam the Kindersinger. So if you know any families with little ones, encourage them to come, they can buy tickets at the door, or they can go on Eventbrite, it's on our website, so. She's really fun, really funny. Yeah. I don't have anything.
Nothing?
Nope.
Nothing from Bill? Nothing from me? Nothing from Karen? Nothing from Warren? Char? No? Rebecca? Wow, all right, cool. Well, then in that case, thank you all very much. We're adjourned. See you in 2 weeks.
Awesome.